Hello again, welcome back to episode 47 of Customers Who Click. Today we're going to be talking about a shopper's favourite topic, promotions. Anyone who's followed along for the last year or so knows that I'm open to the odd discount and promotion when used correctly and sparingly, but generally my approach is around giving value to customers. But today I've got Robin Coles, Managing Director at XC Commerce, with me to talk about how you can be using promotions and discounts strategically to drive engagement and loyalty from customers without cheapening your brand. Let's get him on now to explain. Hi, Robin. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and why you're doing what you do at the moment?
Oh, hello there. Yes, it's a pleasure to do this with you. My name's Robin Coles. Actually, I've been working in retail for around 35 years. I remember a conversation in 1985 with the managing director of the company I work for. He said we were going to write a retail system, and it didn't sound too difficult. Well, anyway, here I am 35 years later. Perhaps we could say he's wrong. Essentially, I've been delivering technology to retailers for around 30 years. In that time, I started as a programmer, actually, and obviously went on to management roles over time. And the thing about retail is it's a constantly evolving and challenging industry. And essentially, it represents our society as a whole, the culture and the way we do things. And it's kind of always driven by customer-based trends. And in the act of retailing, it allows you to be creative, because you've got to have an inherent understanding of technologies. You've got to try and understand where customers are going and how retailers can respond, to those direction of travel, if you like, and drive revenue and opportunity for retailers. So that's kind of summed up my career, if you like. And today I'm working managing director of XC Commerce in the UK, who approached me about 18 months ago and said, would you like to drive our expansion outside our North American territory into the UK and into Europe? So I discussed with them what they had, which is essentially a promotion management and execution system, which is, I think, something that is very lacking across the different retailers I've worked with. It's a bit of a niche product that enables you to very quickly and accurately set up your own promotions and execute them across all of the different channels in a consistent manner. And I'm kind of delighted to be working with them and sort of driving the expansion into the European market and doing things like as we're doing today.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I'm in marketing, so I've dealt with doing promotions a lot. And there's only been one company I've worked at that we've kind of had this dedicated tool for promotions. But I think the problem was always that it was still determined by us. There wasn't any, there were a few rules in place, a few customer tiers and things, but generally it was just, what promotion do you want to run to this customer base? So yeah, I mean, let's kind of dig into promotions a little bit then. So what do brands need to be doing with them? How do they need to be getting smart about them and doing them better?
Well, I think this is another example of something that has been accelerated by COVID, in that most purchase journeys are now multi-channel. They start on one channel and sometimes end on another. It's not always the case, but obviously a higher proportion do that than they did today. And retailers need to make sure that that the promotions they offer, actually consistently applied across each of these different channels. So that if I find something on e-commerce, on the website, and end up perhaps going into a store to buy it, or buying it through my mobile phone, with a consumer app or whatever, retailers have got to make sure that it's the same offer is being made to me in a consistent and real-time manner, because I have the ability, because I'm sitting at home typically buying something, to go and browse somewhere else and do that. I mean, we recently done a report actually, and that says that respondents are much more aligned to promotions these days. They want the best price, they want the best offer, and they're much more likely to be loyal to the retailer or the e-commerce site that's giving that to them. If things are consistently applied and seen to be fair and equitable, sort of thing. That's I think the focus that retailers should be taking.
Yeah, just on that consistency point, the one that immediately springs to mind is mobile phone contracts, and it's definitely the most common place I've seen it, where you will have online only deals and in-store only deals, and sometimes they are promoted on each other. So the in-store will have something that says you can only get this online, which just seems crazy. You're forcing the customer to, well, go to another channel, start the process from scratch. It's obviously easier online because they could do it on their phone right next to the store. But you're still kind of saying, we don't care about why you came to the store. You might find the in-store process easier for you. You might prefer talking to a person. We don't care. You have to go to the website to get this deal. It just seems mad, really.
I agree with you on that, actually. I mean, I think there is a role for channel-specific pricing, providing that it is marketed as channel-specific. Come into our store and we will give you 10% off, or whatever. But the thought of finding an offer on one channel and then going into another channel and they're saying this is online only, well, that's a recipe for disaster. It's likely to lead to a customer switching their loyalty and buying from somebody else. In my view, it's certainly not the way to do it.
I mean, yeah, like you say, promoting in-store promotions is still great. I was speaking to someone on the podcast about experiences. Experiential virtual experiences now, given COVID. But he was saying, something they really look at doing is giving someone an online experience, which then says, right, if you go in store, you can then redeem this voucher, or you need to go in store and do this to kind of unlock the next step, and that works really well. But when you're simply saying to someone, no, you can't have this right now, you have to go to a different channel, that just seems a bit weird.
I agree with you. And I've talked to retailers who struggle to actually have the consistency across different channels, and it's largely because of their systems backgrounds. They bought a point of sale system they've had for many years, and it's got code that deals with promotions. Latterly, they went on to e-commerce, and they obviously chose one of the main vendors, and they have, a promotion code that does certain things. And now they have, a consumer app that was maybe developed by a third party and a self-scanning app, which was developed by somebody else. And all of these have different code that deals with different promotions, and they struggle to work out a cost-effective way of managing it, to get all the same consistency. And further to that, when a new promotion, comes out, because this is what their competitors are doing, what customers are asking, how are they going to do that across promotions in a time scale that makes any sense, across channels, I should say, in a time scale that's going to make any sense? And that's where retailers are stuck because of the legacy of their applications. Actually, today, with new technology and microservices and basically having services which deal with different parts of the application landscape, pricing, promotion, ordering, stock, separated from their core applications. That's actually the way to solve that. And clearly we do that in the promotion management and execution space. So, the good news for retailers is there is a way out of this problem, but they have to sort of embark on a digital transformation to achieve it.
Yeah, and speaking of that digital transformation, I suppose, are there any misconceptions around that? Is it maybe perceived as just super difficult or something? That's it's just such a massive requirement and massive change. It's difficult to justify.
That is certainly a conversation I have with retailers, and I have to tell them that their fears are not correct. It is not impossible to do that. Today's technology, you can change in a relatively short period of time, to a microservices architecture. And we have had clients who have come to us with specific promotion problems that needed to be solved across multiple channels and had them up and running, in a matter of weeks. I mean, I think there are two sides to this. There's that whole, can it be done from a technical sense, which I'm saying it can. And also within the organization, we need the business people to think that it's their responsibility. Implementing a new promotion is not a technical thing that the IT department needs to do. It's something that business staff, in the marketing department or, whichever department does this, in the merchandising department, in some retailers, can take responsibility for, once they've got the system approach I was outlining earlier, and they can then start to be creative are not fearful of, can I do this in time, and is it going to work, and will it be cross-channel, and what will my customers think about it? These things with today's technology and solutions like ourselves, like we offer, can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, it's really important that the people who kind of own those promotions need to be the ones who can actually set them up as well. The company I mentioned earlier, where we did have that kind of in-house tool to build out promotions, it was actually quite owned by the data team, really. So as a marketing team, you still had to go and request it, and if something was just slightly different, sometimes they'd have to build the logic to actually create this promotion. So it doesn't really make sense, and really you want the marketing team to have that flexibility, so that at any opportunity, if an idea comes to someone's head about a slightly creative way to run a promotion, it's good to be able to just go and do that and test it out, because you can test it on a really small audience. But then if you have to request that another team gets involved to build that function out, that you can't then say, I need you to spend some time building this, and we're going to send it to 5,000 customers to test it, because it's just not going to get prioritized. And I suppose on the topic of, I guess, ownership, in a sense, I've had some conversations about the pros and cons of auto applying discounts, or even these extensions that will just run through promotions for you and as a customer. Part of I guess the debate is, do you have a promo code box on a website and allow customers to fill in the promo code, and obviously then potentially go away and find one? Or do you just automatically apply any relevant code that customer should have? So if you've sent them an email with an offer, they just get it by logging in and checking out. And similarly in store, for example, if someone scans their loyalty card, the till system just goes, oh yeah, and I can also see you've got that promotion, so we'll just give it to you. Or, should the customer be, almost responsible for that? Should they see that email or take that voucher in store and proactively redeem it?
Well, to me, actually, it should be automatic. If you're making an offer to a customer, it shouldn't be their responsibility to remind you that you're making the offer to me. But clearly, actually, this whole debate is more about, again, a systemic approach to this, but it's about understanding customers and being able to group them and target certain things to customers. Now, it may be that often the systems that are behind the sites in the stores or whatever aren't capable of recognizing that it's me, Robin Coles, and that voucher was sent to me. So the only way of doing it is for Robin Coles to present his paper voucher or key in his promo code on the website. Okay, so it's a debate about how good the systems in the background are. Certainly, if the system can detect that it's Robin Coles and he is in this customer group and this voucher was given to him, it should take it automatically. I mean, I can use an example of one of our customers in Canada, Metro, who have about 600 grocery and convenience stores across Canada. They use us actually online for customers to be able to go and clip the different offers that are made to the customer group that Robin Coles is in. I click the ones that are relevant to me to my account. Okay. And what that means is when I go to make a purchase, and the basket is presented, the system automatically knows these are the vouchers that Robin Coles needed or wanted because he clicked into his account. Okay. These are the goods that are in the basket. These goods qualify, for this voucher. Therefore, I'm going to take £5 off or give them a free 10 of beans or whatever the voucher comes to. And to me, as a shopper, that's a convenient thing. I'm loyal to the customer because they're giving me rewards that make sense to me. They're targeted to me. They're automatically taking them off, when I go and shop. And that builds loyalty that I won't get if I go to somebody else, particularly if they're asking me to put promo codes in or, manually present vouchers, either by keying them in or in store, on bits of paper or whatever. That's not the way it should be.
Yeah, I suppose actually, just thinking about it, that could tie in really well with loyalty programs as well. If you You earn the loyalty points, you unlock rewards with that. But instead of just giving someone a blanket 10% off on the website, you could say, you can redeem your points. This offer, here's 5 different offers of various values. You can select the offers you want up to the value of your points. So you could have a £10 discount off menswear clothing and a £5 discount off shoes, for example.
Absolutely. And I think what you're alluding to here is, if you like, returning to the days where retailing and the art of promotions is a creative way of doing things. Okay. We saw, over the last 30 years, a lot of centralized activities come to sort of drive the volumes that retailers need on their, initially in their different stores and today across e-commerce. And therefore, and I think some of the things that were lost is the creativity, that you would get, in a more personalized environment. Now, technology can deliver that back to you and enable you to be creative, because what you're really doing with a promotion is not really just setting the price lower. You're giving the customer a reward, for their business that actually encourages them to return to you to get that reward, and by doing so build up further rewards to come back. And obviously your promotional landscape needs to be one that encourages that and needs to change in a rapid enough way that people come back and look online, or go past the store and glance in or whatever, because they expect things to come and they expect it to be targeted and personal and actually to be something that's rewarding and fulfilling for them, rather than just a price reduction. Because I think that retailers who use promotions as simply price reductions, well, I mean, okay, you can do that if you're Primark. Well, you can't today because all of their stores are shut. But, when the stores were open, you can probably do that if you're Tesco's. But if you're not those retailers and you're in those, those sectors, you're always competing on price against them, whereas you should be competing on creativity and rewards and targeting the right things to the right people.
Yeah, definitely. You need targets based on value and personalization, and giving customers what they want. When I spoke with Loyalty Lion, they showed me an example of one of their clients. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's to do with I think it might be dog and cat food. But it's a pet, an online pet company. But their loyalty scheme allows you to either claim a reward, which is a discount off your next purchase, or you can donate your points. And it's donates a meal to a dog shelter, I think, or meals. So I think that's really cool as well, because you're tying it into the values of your company and keeping people engaged. And it's it's still a promotion. It's still rewarding that customer, but it's just not giving them. It doesn't have to necessarily give them money off.
And absolutely, if the system has lifestyle attributes and it is known that I have bought dog food, or even that I have a dog, then clearly that offer should be made to me, not to me when they don't know if I'm interested in pets or indeed have a pet. So again, it comes back to the same thing, targeting the right messages to the right people, because they'll feel rewarded and loved for those messages. Some people want discounts, some people want to feel good about themselves and say, I've donated this to the local dog charity or whatever it is that that the offer pertains to. I agree with you.
Yeah, so I suppose apart from targeting, which I think we've covered a little bit, are there any kind of common mistakes you see when brands kind of get into to discounting and promotions?
Well, I think I've sort of talked a little bit about them as we've gone, really, in that lots of brands see promotions as just prices, which is what I was talking about earlier. And that is not the right way, because, that's not creative. It's just simply a race to the bottom, which you probably can't win, because in the end, you're going to be competing against the Primarks or the Tesco's of the world. You've got to give the people in the departments the ability to be able to be creative about promotions, and to do them in a different way. I think actually looking at what's happened with the pandemic, it's clear from the statistics I've seen in the marketplace that price and discount is more important these days than offers that are made for the future. In other words, something that doesn't give you a tangible reward today, whether the reward is money off, or free shipping or whatever, so retailers need to look what's happening in the marketplace, and actually follow customer trends and make sure that that they're giving customers what they want, and that is not just attempting to compete on price.
Yeah, I think I saw some similar research quite recently, actually. I think I was writing an article about it. Price is always going to be up there as a top consideration for customers, but they're becoming more and more concerned about company values and the experience they get with the business, placing a lot of importance on that. But then when it does come to price and promotions, people want more and more, like you said, targeted promotions, relevant promotions. No one's going to turn down a 20% off code for the website, but you're going to build that relationship with people if you give them 20% off that line of stuff that they normally buy or is very closely related to the stuff they buy, so that when they receive it, they go, oh yeah, that is relevant to me. I might actually check this out. It's just much more, with very little effort, really. Well, at least on behalf of the marketer, you can create a much more engaging promotion that is still just giving a discount, but it's targeted and makes that person think that you've actually thought about them as the reason for creating this promotion.
Well, indeed, and when it comes down to it, from a numeric perspective, a 20% blanket promotion, gives away a certain amount of discount, a certain amount of margin or whatever. But it's that discount or margin you ought to have given to all the people who took it, because as you rightly said, if someone offers you 20%, you're going to take it. And essentially what you've done is you've given away the budget of discount, markdown, whatever you call it, different in different retailers, for no particular reason. Whereas you might have been better focusing on, customers who are known to buy these kinds of items, and these kinds of items are currently overstocked and low stock turn. So if we're going to take our budgeted discount giveaway or whatever, we may as well do it on those items to these groups of customers rather than a blanket, which actually, other than shifting some stock in this particular instance, may not have achieved anything for the longer term. So it's a kind of balance and battle between the short-term need to drive volume and margin and the longer-term need to perpetuate customer loyalty and repeat visits. And this is the promotion world, really is something that sits in that world trying to balance those two things. It used to be simple. It used to be you got to the markdown stage and that's what you did. Today it's much more creative because customers have so much more choice and they can do things in so many different ways, and therefore you have to take a slightly different view.
Okay, so we've talked a bit more about in-store and online and the difference there in that kind of multi-channel approach. But what about how these vouchers are actually distributed or promotions are distributed to get in touch with people? Are you seeing any particular communication channels being more affected or effective even or more useful?
Well, I think this is again something that has been heightened by COVID. Okay, because obviously traditionally coupons, vouchers or whatever were paper based and started off in store, and as we went to e-commerce, clearly they became much more online, but obviously as the majority of purchasing decisions, if you like, and put it that way, now starting online, we get the majority of customers are accessing their coupons digitally, if you like, either by email or by going to the different websites that have offered them, and we've seen that's an increase that has happened over time. But interestingly enough, actually, in some statistics that we produced, we're still seeing, despite non-essential retailer being shut, in our survey we did 36% of customers were still accessing promotions in store, okay, as opposed to initially accessing them online. So retailers have to understand that, whilst COVID has changed things, there obviously are different things happening at different demographics. 18 to 24-year-olds are, much more likely, for example, to access offers and coupons via SMS or whatever, and older shoppers will respond differently to that, that they might, respond more to coupons arriving through the post or, emails, which can direct them to things. So again, this is just another example of how retailers need to not market to the group as a whole, but have to segment, according to, what people buy, how old they are, their lifestyle, shopping activities, and then manage the coupon, in this case, flow to them correspondingly, because, they'll get a higher bang for their buck for 18 to 24-year-olds in this way than they perhaps would, for people who are retired and living at home. This is all up in the air, really, because it is all changing, and being driven by, what we're seeing in COVID and, depending on how long it goes on for and what happens with the vaccines and this sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you're right on the distribution. I think a lot of companies, email is just the default. Almost pretty much every company just sends out the promotions by email. Bigger ones might do it via mail as well, so direct mail. I don't. I haven't received anything from Tesco for quite a while, actually, but I used to. But now, actually, they do the discounts in store, which I'm actually a fan of. This new approach of if you've got a club card, there are club card prices for certain products, which I think is really good. But yeah, you're right. Some people will respond better to an SMS or a push notification. Direct mail does have its place. It works really well, and direct mail also does work online, which I think isn't used so much. Maybe I think you tend to get a lot of coupons for use in store, and then you'll also get. I receive a lot of kind of catalogs from certain online retailers, but that's it really. Whereas I think there could be a more personalized and targeted approach using direct mail, but targeting online. Do you see any big trends coming in the way businesses use promotions and how customers perceive them? I suppose generally, how are things going to develop over the next kind of 18 months or longer? It doesn't have to be 18 months.
Well, I think you have to look at, what COVID is doing to people's financial situations, and how that's likely to change over time. Clearly, we're now in a position where there's much more economic uncertainty, than there was, prior to the pandemic. And obviously, within economics, within those times, people will react differently to pricing and promotions than they would otherwise. So I think, again, it's just heightening the, retailers' need or the ability to have a much more intelligent approach to this, because different demographics, different age profiles or whatever, will have different elements of economic uncertainty. They will respond in differing ways to the promotions. Clearly, blunt statement, if one is sitting at home retired, one has less economic uncertainty from the pandemic than if one's at the start of one's journey and, has an expensive mortgage and is currently furloughed or whatever. And therefore that group, is likely to respond to direct offers that, reduce the price here and now, as opposed to things that will be rewarding, for our next visit or for the future, free shipping included. Whereas the older group are probably still more in the lifestyle stage and not so price sensitive, but want to be treated as, as a customer that, you understand my buying habits and are making offers to me on things that I normally buy. Okay, promotion will have to be in there, but it probably doesn't have to be as deep or as complicated, as it would be otherwise. So I think, that's the main thing. We're seeing those kinds of trends. First phase of the pandemic, people's spending seemed to be something that continued, throughout without changing. But I think we're seeing some slightly different things happening now because it's sort of going on longer than we would have thought.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said just earlier about people want the promotions now. They don't want a future reward, which I think particularly true with first purchases. if it's the first time on your website, being told you're going to get loyalty points for creating an account and making a purchase is pretty meaningless, unless you've got that small group of people who have actually been engaging with the brand for a long time and actually really like the brand, but just haven't purchased and are finally doing so. But generally, those first purchases, they would rather have a 15-20% discount now, experience the product, experience the brand, and then maybe join a loyalty program once they're kind of convinced.
Yes, and that backs up our survey. Actually, the survey that we did, actually 78% of respondents were saying the price or money off is the most likely thing to make them buy. And more than half of the shoppers also said, well, actually free shipping would also make them buy, because that reduces the price that needs to be paid, and actually you're only down into the 20%, when you're talking about, I don't know, free subscriptions to Disney or whatever for the future, because that's a nice thing to have, but it doesn't represent money off at the time when people are financially uncertain. So, those basic things have come to the top.
Just to clarify that, when you say access to free services, so is that if you sign up for this mobile contract, we'll give you 3 months access to Disney Plus?
Those sorts of things. Yes. Our survey actually found that 20% of shoppers, in the survey, said access to free services, for example, Disney, would convince them to purchase, and therefore 80% would not be interested in that, as opposed to 78%, saying that the end price was the most important thing. So I think, therefore, mobile phone companies, in your example, need to rethink what they're doing. It's, I want money off, I want direct things that mean things to me, rather than an notional Disney, which I may or may not use, and actually doesn't represent any value in my bank account.
But it's also, it is also another blanket promotion, really, because you're not, those sort of promotions aren't targeted generally, or from what I've seen. So if I've already got Disney Plus, I don't care. That promotion then does nothing for me. And even sometimes when there are multiple options, if it says you can have access to, I don't know, Netflix, Spotify, or Disney Plus, you still might look at those options and go, well, I've got the ones that I want. I don't really need that. That's not going to convince me to buy. It's just a nice to have afterwards that I might check out. It's interesting that 78% of people want money off a product. That makes sense. I kind of would have thought that more people would want things like free shipping, because I think in a lot of cases people can understand paying the price that they're asked to pay for a product, because that's kind of the value of the product. If the website's doing a good job, it will convince you that the product is worth that price. But I think a lot of people find it hard to justify paying for shipping, because that just seems like an added cost that you're not really getting anything for, particularly if it's standard shipping, but even kind of next day. I think that's why people are willing to spend a little bit more and buy something that's worth an extra £15-20 to avoid a £4 or £5 next day delivery fee, because they don't like that. It's almost like wasting money paying for shipping, which doesn't really do anything for them except get it to them quicker. But I would have thought that would be higher, actually.
Yes, well, it may be that our questions didn't focus exclusively on free shipping. They may have focused on added value things. And had they been a question directly about free shipping, it might have been higher. But I agree with you. Essentially, the shipping is two things, really. Firstly, it's really a product price. If I'm going to buy this things for 20 and the shipping costs 5, well, I'm looking at the item as costing me 25. The fact that it's only 20 for the product is, neither one thing or the other. And I think the other thing you were alluding to is, at what point in the purchasing cycle does it become obvious that I have to pay another £5? Okay, so it's psychologically bad when added at the end, with no mention of it having been made up until that point. So therefore, that's a kind of double whammy, isn't it? Psychologically bad when it's done, and also directly increasing the price. I mean, when it comes down to it, if you pay £7.99 a month for Amazon Prime, everything's free shipping, and everybody buys all sorts of things, and 20 things turn up by Amazon in a month. It's cost you hardly anything.
Yeah.
So retailers need to respond to that. I mean, again, this is probably something that the pandemic has driven, because people are more price sensitive and shopping online more, and these things are more obvious, and therefore rising in people's mental approach.
Yeah, and also I think the fact that it's almost it's best practice now, really, to offer free shipping over a certain amount. So if everywhere does it, if you don't do it, you stand out. And large numbers of consumers, I can't remember the percentage now, but yeah, very large numbers of consumers will abandon a shopping cart if there's an unexpected cost when you get to checkout. So even you can say on the website, next day delivery is £4.99. And you can say, next day delivery is free if you spend over £50. But if you don't mention either of those and someone gets to checkout and suddenly you try to charge them £4.99 for shipping, that causes them to drop.
Indeed. I mean, that's essentially a promotion, a creative promotion, where the retailer has had to work out what is the average basket value, and it tends to be £43.20 or whatever. And therefore, if I give away, such and such for more than £50, I'm increasing my average basket value by £7. And because I've got this many customers, that comes out to this amount. And therefore, it actually makes me money, even if I do give shipping away. And that's a calculation that, can clearly be done relatively easily.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could even do kind of multiple items, or, one promotion that I don't see much at all is actually, when you purchase multiple items. There's no, I think it's very, very common in trade and B2B. If I need to order, not exactly uniforms, but let's say I want to buy a load of T-shirts with my brand on it, the more T-shirts I buy, the cheaper it gets for me. But that doesn't really happen B2C.
I think it can, and I think you're right. We have customers in North America, who have trade counters. And, the complexities of the pricing there are driven by volume. This customer in this department, gets this much off electrical. And therefore, if they buy this, they then get this much. And that's very common. I think we are seeing that in certain sectors. So for example, in the DIY sector, there are a lot of vendor funded promotions, which, might be that if you buy any 3 tins of 5 litre paint from this vendor, you get one of them free. And the difficulty that retailers have in this area is trying to balance the vendor funded promotions against their own promotions, given the basket that's been presented, and actually give the customer the best deal, because some of them may conflict. They may have, if you buy a tin of paint, and a brush, you get a roller set free. Well, that's all fine, but what happens if you've got 3 tins of paint in there and the vendor promotion comes in? So this, again, it comes back to, this being creative about your promotions. So there's all sorts of things that entice people to go in, but at the time that you check out, whether it be online or, in the store or whatever, the system is capable of determining, well, what is the best promotion I can give in a sub-second response time that, gives the customer the best deal and balances the fact I've got a vendor funded promotion, so I could give that and it won't cost me anything. And again, this is the delicate balance of retailing, of trying to make sure the customer gets the best deal, yet it's, the most preferable thing for the retailer. So I think in the DIY side, to answer your question, there's a lot of that goes on. I think also in pharmacy, you get that. And these are all kind of vendor, there's lots of different sort of branded merchandise in there. I think it's, less so, for example, in fashion. Fashion is an area that, unlike America, we don't tend to do these things in the UK. It tends to be a price and markdown strategy and not a complex promotion strategy. Yeah. Whereas our North American cousins, actually, they're very active across all the sectors. Buy any 5 from the ladies' underwear department and you'll get this free. Buy any 5 from this department, something else will happen. Spend more than £50 whilst doing that, and we'll give you this. And I think this is why, I guess, from an e-commerce perspective, we came from America, because complexity like that tends to drift over the Atlantic to us. With companies who buy and start up here, and everybody then has to follow it because it's seen as creative for clients. So I suppose we're over here at an opportune moment for that.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how it develops. I completely forgot, obviously, about supermarkets. They do loads and loads of, buy two for £2.50 instead of paying £3 if you bought, two separately, or buy three for the price of two. So yeah, it's quite common in supermarkets, I think, as well. But generally out there, yeah, and in fashion, yeah, I don't think you see it a lot. And I know Holland and Barrett, they have their penny sale a lot, to the point where I'm not actually sure it's a sale. I think it's actually a promotion that they run maybe all the time. Buy any full priced item and get this one for a penny. I don't know if you're aware of that one.
I have seen that one. It's essentially buy two get one free, isn't it? But they're using clever marketing because it sounds, oh, that one's only a penny. Wait a minute, that's buy two one get one free, and I've spent a penny more. But it's got a different appeal to me than the other one kind of thing. So yes, I mean Holland and Barrett, obviously, they will have customer statistics and this sort of thing as well in the background.
Yeah, definitely. I guess just moving on to some of your opinions on things a bit separately. Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to marketing? Maybe as a customer or in business?
Well, as a customer, I mean, it frustrates me when I have offers that I can't make sense of. I mean, without calling out too many names, BT used to be dreadful at this. You'd have all these different offers of broadband and this and that and the other, and you kind of couldn't figure out why they were making the offer. It could have been described perhaps as confusion marketing, keeping you in a constant state of confusion. You didn't really know what the price was or was supposed to be. And therefore you didn't necessarily end up selecting the right thing. And that's a frustrating thing for me. Marketing should be there, to create clarity and, and drive value and simplicity for the customer, not just be something that creates confusion, in a customer's mind, because that isn't going to drive any loyalty or brand value. That's, I suppose, one of my things. And I guess, from the systemic point of view, getting people to understand that actually retailing is a creative thing. Promotions are creative, and these are what customers want. And there are systems that are around, like including ours, that, that can help you drive this across all the channels. It's easy to do, call me and we can have a discussion about it, and I can tell you what we've done and how we can help. And obviously, as a managing director, I guess I'd want people to do that with me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned BT. I think it's not just them. I think it's that those kind of markets don't, in my opinion, don't tend to focus too much on customer loyalty, or their version of customer loyalty is by having a mobile account or a broadband account, you get access to this dashboard which gives you some rewards, and none of those rewards are targeted. You see it in a lot of loyalty schemes actually. You'll log into your kind of member area to see what discounts are available, and it's just a list of generic promotions at various different retailers. There's always a discount on Taste Card. That's always one of the options. Just finally then, is there any particular area of marketing you feel is quite underrated?
Well, I mean, I think that generally British retailers don't see marketing as being something that is fantastically operational. I mean, it ought to be. The marketing team are the people who have access to, customer statistics and CRM systems and, lifestyle attributes. And from there, the creativity should come. Mainstream retailers have seen marketing for many years as being something that, is about brand value, and responding when the latest reports come out, window dressing and all this sort of thing, doing the pretty things on a website, which hugely important, absolutely, but it also should be the area that the creativity comes out of. And I think retailers are missing a trick if they're not empowering their marketing teams, and to do that, and giving them systems that can enable them to sort of drive competitive factors that other people who don't do that won't be able to.
Yeah, I do think marketing gets almost viewed as just an acquisition team. In a lot of companies, it seems to be that the marketing team is either the team that's responsible for advertising and driving traffic to a website or in store, or the CRM team, and their responsibility is to send out emails, send out SMS, send out direct mails. And other bits are kind of the responsibility of the rest of the business. So promotions and things, when really, marketing needs to be driving almost everything that's consumer facing, at least in my opinion. Even it might be a bit controversial, but I think customer service should really sit kind of inside marketing, because they're the ones actually speaking to the customers on a day-to-day basis. They're effectively doing one-to-one marketing every day.
I agree with you. And in fact, I had a colleague many years ago who told me that, in his view, one of the key metrics for the valuation of a company, particularly in an acquisition cycle, would in the future be the depth, wealth, and use of their customer data. Okay, so not just their turnover and their profit as it's at the moment, but how they're able to use customer data to be more competitive and more creative and do things for the longer term. And that would be, a KPI when acquiring a company, or doing a report on a company. I think that's correct. But obviously, to do that, you have to have a marketing department that is empowered to take the decisions, and a business executive that supports that and drives it through.
Yeah, if you were looking at acquiring a company, and you realise that they're doing pretty well, but fairly profitable, whatever, decent sized business, but they're not really making any use of that customer data, it means you've got a real opportunity there. You might be able to 2 or 3 times the size of the business over a couple of years just by digging into that data and personalizing. Whereas you might find a company that's in a similar position in terms of size and maybe revenue, profit, but they are maxing out their capabilities there, indicating that they're going to struggle to grow. So that's quite interesting.
I think there's a number of ways of looking at it. Depends obviously on the company. Clearly companies for acquisition can be appearing to make a profit because they've been so focused on cost and there's nowhere else to go with that. Meanwhile, the market's becoming more competitive and the prices they charge are not sustainable. And therefore, you've got to drive, loyalty and repeat visits and increase turnover from the customers you've got. That's kind of, one angle you could take. But I also agree with you, that if a company is doing very well, and they have sustainable pricing, yet they're doing very little with their customers, that is a definite opportunity if they've got the customer data to significantly grow the company. Something that an investor would certainly be very interested in.
Yeah, well, this has been really great stuff, really fascinating stuff. Be really interesting to see where promotions go over the next couple of years, and see whether more and more retailers do become smarter with their approach. If people want to find out more or get in touch, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, they can go to our website, which is www.xccommerce, so that XCC and then xcommerce.com. Actually, we've just done a survey, which I've referred to as we've gone. And if you want to download that and have a look at that, please feel free. That you go to www.xccommerce.com and then /download-promotion. And obviously, if you wanted to get in touch with me, I'm robin.coles@xccommerce.com. Be delighted to have further debates, or give you further information if you want.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Robin.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.
If promotions are a key part of your business model, or you're looking to get more value from them, I think this podcast has been an excellent place to start. It's no longer good enough to just send out a blanket 15 or 20% off code to your email list in the hopes that some customers will come back. You need to be targeted and personalized with your approach. Think about who your customers are, what they've bought previously, what they've looked at or wishlisted, but also what channels they prefer. Do they want an in-store promotion? Would they prefer to receive their promotions via SMS or even direct mail? With the technology available these days, there isn't really a good excuse for not doing this to at least a basic level. If you'd like to learn more about running promotions, reach out to Robin on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you as well. So if you want to discuss today's topic, marketing in general, or your favorite pizza toppings, just tweet me at Will Lawrenson. Next up, I've got Derry Jones, and we're going to be talking about the importance of managing your tech stack properly and the dangers of that shiny new SaaS tool. But until then, keep those customers clicking.